I was swinging along, minding my business.
Welcome to our very first panel discussion on old spirituals. Today, I have with me three of my good friends, and I'll give them each a chance to introduce themselves, starting with Harpreet. And then, Harpreet, when you're done, you could just say who should introduce themselves next.
Hi, I'm Harpreet. Thanks for having me on today. And Charlene.
Hi, I'm Charlene. I'm going to talk about or comment on this story. So excited about that.
Okay. Yeon Jeung?
Hi, I'm Yeon Jeung. I'm looking forward to hearing the story about these characters and share comments with everybody here.
Oh, okay. I have a strange little story to tell you today, and I'm calling it for right now the Tangled Web. And it's a poison pen case. So if you don't know the term poison pen, it means like a hateful anonymous letter that you get in the mail. And these used to be really, I don't know, more popular than they are now. You don't really hear about them happening anymore. But up until like the end of the 20th century, they were pretty common. So I always think they're interesting, like the psychology of somebody who would write an anonymous letter and why. And in this case, we have three people. It centers around three people. The first one is Wally Burnett here. And Wally was a dapper, handsome appliance salesman. In 1928, he was 30 years old and he was quite successful. He was a World War I veteran and he had opened his own appliance store. He was living with his mother and he often hosted cellar parties in the basement of this appliance store that he owned. And they would have alcohol and cigarettes and jazz music. And alcohol was illegal in the United States from I think 1919 to 1932, somewhere right around there. But it was illegal at the time. So it was just sort of this thing that they would go and they could drink there and stuff. And he had a girlfriend named Sarah Mowell, this girl down here that's wearing the very 1920s head wrap there. And Sarah was 23. She worked at the local bank and she had an unblemished character. Everybody liked her. She'd never been in any trouble. As a salesman, Wally would make these frequent sales calls and he sold a refrigerator. I'm going to try this one time to the von Moschzisker family. I'm going to call them the Von M's. Mr. and Mrs. Von M were quite wealthy. Let me show you a picture of them. They didn't have any children, but they were very well off and they had a lot of status in the community because Mr. Von M was the head of the real estate department for the Pennsylvania Railroad. And that was really big at the time. It would have probably been about the equivalent today of maybe being like a vice president at Google or something. It would have been a big deal. And his brother was a justice on the Pennsylvania Supreme Court. So anything that this family did was news. And he was quite a bit older than her. He was 69 years old and he was a quiet man. He wanted a quiet life, kind of retiring kind of life. She was significantly younger. He was 69. She was 52. She was completely unlike her husband. You know, he wanted this quiet life. She wanted to be an 18-year-old flapper. You know, she really wanted to party and hang out with young people. They had a bunch of pre-war alcohol at their house, so they still had it, and she would serve it really generously. But she would always invite really young people over to just hang out, drink alcohol, and smoke her husband's cigarettes, right? That was the how they would hang out then. And Wally was always on her guest list. She really liked Wally. And he occasionally would bring Sarah over to the Von M's house with him. One day, Mrs. Von M shocks Ridgewood, New Jersey, and she declares herself to be the victim of a blackmail and poison pen campaign. She said she'd been receiving letters accusing her, this is Mrs. Von M, of having an affair with Wally. And they demanded $40,000 in hush money, which was a lot of money back then.
Oh,
The threat to expose her affair to her husband, to the whole small town of Ridgewood, and even to the newspapers was made in these little letters that she was receiving. So she had gone to their district attorney, they shared the letters, And the state of New Jersey arrested and charged Wally's girlfriend with sending the letters. They're like, this is you. You're sending these hateful letters accusing poor Mrs. Von M of having an affair with Wally. And because, of who her husband was and who her brother-in-law were, this was big national news. So it was a big scandal. Sarah was arrested, taken to jail, put on jail scrubs or whatever they were wearing back then. And she was released on $5,000 bail until she could be tried. So I checked that part out. $5,000 is about $100,000 today, like just to give you an idea. So if we just stop there, what do you think so far? What do you think is happening here? Are you surprised at Mrs. Von M being a target?
Well, if
No.
they're wealthy, yeah.
They're
Mm.
wealthy. Yeah, that's true. They lived in that nice big house. Yeon Jeung, what do you think?
Yeah, makes sense. And not just that, she also offers alcohols and cigarettes to young people. No wonder why she got targeted. I think,
Yeah, she's like misbehaving a little bit herself.
yeah.
What do you say, Char?
Yeah, I agree. It's probably the crowd that she was inviting into her house that like started the letter campaigns.
Do you think they were having an affair? Like, was there any
No,
truth to it?
probably not.
No? Yeon Jeung, you're shaking your head. You don't think so either?
Yeah, but I'm curious why Walter's girlfriend Sarah was accused of
That's a
this
great
blackmail.
question.
Yeah. And
That's a
somehow
great
the
question.
police just decided to send her to the prison and you have to have this amount of money, a lot of money, if you want to
Yeah.
get out. Like on what proof were they able to do that?
Yeah, great question. I might have some answers for you in the next little part, but what about you, Harpreet? Do you think they were having an affair?
I could see it, and I could see Mrs. Von M setting up the her lover's girlfriend as a way to get rid of her,
Oh,
as a type of jealousy.
okay. So they're having an affair and she wants this girl out of the picture. Like she wants Wally all to herself. Okay. Good thinking. All right, let's go on then. So the investigators looked into Sarah Mowell and they concluded that her hostility towards Mrs. Von M must have been due to a mix of greed and jealousy. So she probably was writing those letters. That's what the state was claiming anyway. And they said she probably wanted her hands on some of that money. And she was probably jealous because this sophisticated older woman with all these resources was, moving in on her territory. And the anonymous letters claimed that Sarah and Wally were engaged and Mrs. Von M was trying to separate them. So the case goes to trial. I don't think it would have gone to trial had her brother-in-law not been a justice on the Pennsylvania Supreme Court, but it did. And the crowds were huge. Everyone wanted to know about these anonymous letters. When the press went over to the Von M's house to interview Mrs. Von M the day before the trial, they described her as highly belligerent. However, when she spoke to reporters outside the courtroom, she smiled at the photographers and said it was a shame that the case had gotten so much publicity. She wanted it to be settled quietly. She said that the scandal had made her life really difficult. And inside, there was crowds of locals, but also friends of hers, Mrs. Von M's, friends of Sarah's, and friends of Walter's. So Sarah, of course, is the defendant in this case. And they the state opened their argument and said that it was a shakedown, basically, that this girl here was jealous and it was a shakedown. She wanted some money. So you guys want to take a look at some of these letters? All right, these aren't the actual letters because I couldn't find the images of them, but I found the text of them, so I just recreated them. So we don't have to read through all of them, but you can see that they're kind of immature, like he never even liked you, that kind of thing. They said that her boy catching game, they called her a white-haired vamp, which is pretty funny. Um, but they're also they're mean-spirited too. So These were just a few of the samples from 3 different letters. And pretty vicious towards Mrs. M. And I'll just leave these up and keep talking to you guys and telling you more of the story. So according to the newspaper, Sarah Mowell looked really glamorous at the trial. She was wearing a leopard skin coat and high heels, and she sat with perfect composure as these embarrassing letters were read aloud to the jury and to everybody in the courtroom. Mrs. Von M was sitting with her chauffeur in the back of the room. Curiously enough, her husband was sitting at the front of the room, so they didn't sit together at the trial. But she seemed to enjoy listening to them being read, even though all these unkind comments were read about her. And she even grinned when somebody said the white-haired vamp comment. She thought that was pretty funny, you know. The state produced 2 handwriting experts. So Charlene, I thought you'd like this part because you analyze handwriting, to compare the poison pen letters with the samples of Miss Mowell's handwriting. They pointed out distinct similarities. So kind of what you're getting to, Yeon Jeung, with like, why did they suspect her? They said it was like her handwriting in some ways. And they said that some of the small letters, some of the capital letters looked like Miss Mowell's handwriting, Sarah's handwriting. And under cross-examination, though, those handwriting experts had to admit that you could copy somebody else's handwriting, but if you did it for very long, you would lapse into your own handwriting eventually. You would just forget. But when the defense presented its case, they pointed out how absurd it was to even suspect Sarah of being this poison pen author. She didn't have any motive to send these cruel letters to Mrs. M. Why should she be jealous? She was Wally's girlfriend. She had a great reputation. She had a good job at the bank. She didn't need her money. She didn't need anything. And the defense started to produce character witnesses, including the president of the bank where Sarah worked. And he said, you know, we're perfectly satisfied with her work. She's very good. She's on time every day. We don't have any problems with her. And we're not going to let her go unless she's convicted. And they produced 4 handwriting experts. So you got 6 handwriting experts in this little courtroom. And they testified definitively. Sarah didn't write these letters. One of the experts was really funny, and the newspapers like kind of had a blast making fun of this poor guy because he was so passionate about her handwriting and so full of praise. And he said it was rare artistry and talked about the beauty of the way that she made her O's and crossed her T's. And so all the newspapers were laughing at that. But they also revealed Miss Mowell was left-handed. So the handwriting would not look like this. It would look a little bit different. And with that, the case against Miss Mowell began to fray. So what are you thinking right now? Now that you've seen some of these letters, what are your thoughts? Let's start with Char.
Now I'm thinking that someone was trying to set her up.
Okay. Do you have an idea? Like, do you think it was Wally? Or do you think it was Mrs. M, Mrs. Von M, or Mr. Von M, or somebody else?
It could be Mrs. M, but I guess if she wanted more drama in her life, that could be
Yeah, it could be.
reason. But or it could just be some anonymous person trying to frame her. So.
Yeah, it could be. What do you think, Yeon Jeung?
Yeah, I think the same way. I think because she likes to, let's say, have a party and then hang out with many people, maybe, I guess for attention, I hope I don't sound mean. Maybe I think she set it up just for herself so that she can get some attention and publicity.
Mrs. Von M? You think
Yeah,
Mrs.
Bonham.
Von
Yeah,
M set
Miss
it up?
Bonham. Yeah.
Okay. What do you say, Harpreet?
Yeah, I think my first theory, I think it's that she was having an affair and that this younger woman was considered her rival and she was trying to get rid of her rival.
God help the criminals if you ever become a detective. You're pretty good. Let's see. I'll keep telling you guys some more about her. So then the defense springs a surprise. Okay. Nobody knew this was coming. And they accused Mrs. Von M of writing the letters herself. They said that she had been driven mad by her infatuation with Wally. She really was infatuated with him. And she was very jealous of Miss Mowell. So she fabricated the blackmail plot to get rid of Sarah and have Wally to herself. Let's go back to their pictures here. She even went so far on one occasion to tell Burnett, Wally Burnett, that, quote, "You must realize my life has been very dull with Mr. Von M." Mrs. Von M in the audience, everybody turns to look at her and she looks shocked, like absolutely shocked. And she turns and looks at her friends and she's, mouths that. And Wally then is called as a witness. So what does Wally have to say? He said he testified that he was not engaged to Sarah, but he confirmed that Mrs. Von M had tried her best to lure him in. She invited him to the theater several times. One of the theater productions that she asked him to go to is called Cradle Snatchers, which I thought was really funny because she's kind of a cougar, right? And she plied him with drinks on many occasions. She gave him her husband's cigarettes to smoke and regularly sent him small presents, including books and a dictionary. A little bit of an unusual choice, but okay. She called Wally dear child and dear boy, and she also sent flowers to his mother's home very regularly. Then she would follow it up by calling Wally's mother and saying, "Would you please place the flowers in Wally's room?" And she sent him a card, which I wasn't able to find the card, but I found an image of it. So this is what the card said. And apparently, when this was read out loud in court, Wally turned absolutely bright red, because they're talking about how this older woman's trying to reel him in, and he's embarrassed by it. And he said that Mrs. Von M had tried to give him $5,000, which we already said is $100,000 today. And he was like, "How do you have this much money?" And she said, "Oh, an ex-boyfriend of mine, from before I was married, he died and he had never gotten over me and he left it all to me. He left his fortune to me. And I don't want my husband to be jealous. I think he would be dreadfully jealous. So would you just please take the money?" But Wally said no. He said he couldn't take it. It was too much. But he did borrow $98 from her. And the whole time he was on the stand testifying, Mrs. Von M watched him, just with like big eyes, she would like crane her neck to watch him like get on and off the stand, all this stuff. The defense, though, became very hostile towards both Mrs. Von M and Wally. So they said she was a public menace, but they also referred to Wally as a spineless jellyfish. So neither of them are coming off looking too good here. And they also brought Sarah on the stand to show a letter that Mrs. Von M had sent to her. It's a real letter, like it wasn't anonymous, but she just sent it to Sarah. She really wanted to get invited to those cellar parties in the basement of the appliance store, but nobody would invite her, and she was just trying to wrangle an invitation here. But it's like it's a little bit oddly worded. I don't know. Any thoughts on this one, on the letter itself? Harpreet, your expressions is
A modern chaperone. So it's the same.
She meant like she was a chaperone, but not. She was really there to party, but she could give them a tinge of respectability if they ever happened to get caught, you know.
Is this the real handwriting?
No,
Oh,
I wasn't
okay.
able to find the real handwriting with any of them.
Okay.
Anyway, she was hell-bent for excitement. And they made Mrs. Von M come to the stand and write the words "hell-bent for excitement" to compare it to the letters. And they didn't match, but of course they wouldn't match because she would be careful that they didn't. When Sarah Mell was acquitted, she smiled, and Walter Burnett called the verdict lovely. Mrs. Von M was interviewed outside the courthouse, and she said she was embarrassed. She said she had no ill will towards Sarah Mell, but she would be very glad to have the authorship of these letters cleared up. "There's still a mystery to me," she declared. And I want to show you guys a picture of Sarah with her mother, if I have it here. So this is Sarah and her mother walking outside the court. Look how tiny she is compared to her mom. Her mom's like, I don't know if her mom was really big, but she was really tiny. Sarah Mell promptly countersued Mrs. Von M for $75,000. And it was for false arrest and imprisonment, damaging her reputation, all of this stuff that she had put her through. And she said, that's contributed to my ill health. And it turned out that she was very sick. She was ill with consumption, or tuberculosis. And she couldn't attend when they had the trial of Mrs. Von M in 1930. Her mother was there, though, and her mother spoke for her, and she cried when she talked about how her daughter was forced to wear a prison uniform. And there was a bit of information that was presented about these poison pen letters. All the letters that Mrs. Von M had received had this peculiar error in them, where they had misplaced apostrophes. So they looked like this: haven't, doesn't. And it turned out, just so happened to be, that Mrs. Von M regularly made that mistake whenever she wrote letters. So it was another piece of evidence there. And the jury awarded Miss Mowell $25,000. She sued for $75,000, and then the judge arbitrarily reduced that amount to $13,000. I don't know if they can do that or not, but he did. And the Von M's appealed it, but then the New Jersey State Supreme Court upheld the verdict against Mrs. Von M in 1932. So just to tell you the last part, what happened in the end, Miss Mowell never received her money because she passed away in September 1931 at the age of 26 from consumption. In March 1932, so about 6 months later, Walter married another woman named Lillian O'Neill. In July 1932, Mr. Von M passed away at the age of 71. And Walter lived until 1961, so he died at the age of 65. And Mrs. Von M lived until 1966, outliving everybody at the age of 90. So that is the story. Let's go back to their pictures. I wish we had more of their pictures, but we have these three. What do you guys think about this? Like, what are your thoughts on this whole story? Harpreet, you get to go first because you guessed it, like very first one.
Yeah, I think it comes down to just lust and jealousy. Lust, greed, and jealousy are big motivators in a lot of these crime stories. And
Yeah.
I think Mrs. Von M, I mean, Sarah is a younger woman, and just by that, I think there's some competitiveness and feeling of like she's young and I'm never gonna, just because of reality, she'll never be young like that.
No, she really wanted to be young though. Like you could tell on like the way that she wrote and the people she wanted around her. She could have a really good life too. Like they were wealthy. She could have been with people her own age who would have been jealous of her probably, you
Mhm.
know. Um, what do you say, Char?
Well, it was just pretty sad that like Sarah had to go through all that and just just the target of yeah, all this like jealousy and she's just framed and
Yeah.
yeah.
She was just minding her own business, right? She's a clerk at a bank and that's all she did. And she's got this boyfriend. Anyway, what do you think, Yeon Jeung?
Oh, I just I think in one sense it's just sad and funny at the same time. Like, yeah, it's sad that Mrs. Burnham was jealous of Sarah, and it, but at the same time, it's funny. She thought she could get Walter by doing such things.
Yeah, who's to say
Yeah,
Walter would want her even if she got rid of Sarah?
yeah. So I found it funny in one sense, but I'm a third person. I wasn't like, in this situation. But
Yeah,
even though this case happened the way in the past, I'm sure something similar is happening even these days, I bet.
you bet.
Yeah,
I'm sure.
yeah.
Yeah, that's a really good point too. Because like Sarah was the victim in all of it and seemed
Hmm.
to be like really good grace about it. She had her composure. She wasn't making a lot of counter accusations until after she was, declared not guilty. I don't know. What do you guys think about Wally? Do you think Wally like contributed to this in some way?
Maybe a little bit. It seems like he wasn't after anything from Mrs. Von M, and he didn't want that. Um, he didn't take the large sum given to him, um, but he could have, done better to like protect Sarah.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe.
I'm sure it helped his ego. I mean, to have two women fighting over him.
Yeah, that's probably not the worst thing in the world for a guy, but I don't know. I don't really feel like Wally was too much at fault. It seemed like he had to go call on customers because he sold appliances and he sold them a refrigerator. So like, you get business from one person and then they're going to recommend you to other people. So it's like it probably would have been important for him to go for his business, but I I don't know. I really feel like Mrs. Bonham was delusional, like completely delusional. It's crazy when you look at these notes and she wrote them to herself, you know? Like they're mean and I mean, of course she's trying to like play it off like it's somebody else, but they're really mean things to say to somebody else, like you're just good customers, people just use you, you're the biggest fool, all of that stuff. He laughs at you.
Yeah.
Um,
I
I
think
don't
she
know.
was
I can't imagine
bored.
what would make her do it. Was that sure?
Oh, that was me. I think
Oh,
maybe she was just a bored rich woman who just
oh,
developed this infatuation and let her jealousy and her lust get the better of her instead of developing a hobby or, becoming philanthropic. And she just was a bored rich woman and kind of let her free time get consumed by this stuff.
yeah, yeah.
And actually, I wonder if she happened to exist in like modern era, maybe if she saw a therapist, maybe her therapist could have stopped her from doing such things.
I feel like a therapist would have been completely befuddled by her. They would have been like, "You what? You like a 30-year-old appliance salesman?" I mean, and the guy was like, he wasn't into her. And she just, even if you look at her other picture with her husband here, I know she felt like he was like so much older than her and everything, but I mean, she looks kind of matronly. She doesn't look like a young girl or anything. Not like you have to look a certain way, but definitely she doesn't seem like a rival for Sarah, in any way. Any closing thoughts on these guys? Har-
Um, I mean, I feel bad for Sarah because she just kind of got caught up in something and that she probably had no idea even how to handle, especially going up against someone so wealthy.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, just the idea like you did this, you're getting framed with these really embarrassing accusations. That would have been really rough. Char, Yeon Jeung, any last thoughts on these before we close the book on Mrs. Bonham?
Maybe Mrs. Barnum, um, she definitely had some maybe psychological issue with her, right? I think.
Certainly.
Yeah, maybe Wally, maybe Walter was just being friendly to do his job, and she took it wrong, and then somehow,
Oh, like she
uh,
thought he was in love with her because he was friendly when he's trying to sell her a refrigerator.
that's what I assuming because sometimes you never know how people will take. I mean, he was trying to do his job to be friendly and to sell his stuff,
I
and
mean, he brought his girlfriend over when he would come to visit. It was like it wasn't a secret. He wasn't really into her. But yeah, I mean, it makes me wonder when you say that, it makes me wonder what else she did that like didn't make the news. Because I'm sure this was like one of many things that she probably had
Mhm.
going. Shar, any last thoughts on Mrs. Von M and Wally and Sarah?
No, I think everyone kind of nailed it. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Minding my business when suddenly out of the blue, just like a present from heaven, beautiful, wonderful you. The clouds disappeared and the birds started singing.